Hi there, my name is Kyle Alexander and I work as a soft tissue physiotherapist for Ulster Rugby, and I've also worked for Irish Athletics for around 10 years. I should admit at this stage that I did go to Belfast Inst, so I'm glad that this is being done in this format so that I can't have things thrown at me and abuse hurled as would be expected. So yeah, it's a pleasure to share a bit about what I do and some of the experiences that I've had. So I, ironically, in some ways, always wanted to be a PE teacher. I always knew that I wanted to work in sport. It became very obvious very quickly that that wasn't going to be through my own sporting ability. So I knew that just as someone who loved sport, I thought it would be great if my 9 to 5, for want of a better phrase, was in sport and in professional sport. So I guess as I thought about that, PE teaching was a genuine option for a while that I did actually think very seriously about, and even after I finished my physio degree, I was sort of considering doing a PGC and getting into PE teaching, but I went down the physiotherapy route. I guess through university, physiotherapy is a massive sort of spectrum of different types of physiotherapists, similar in a way to if you study medicine. You know, you could go on to be a surgeon or a GP, or whatever field of medicine you go into. With physiotherapy, there's quite a lot of different fields, which I guess not many folk maybe are aware of that. I guess when folk think physiotherapy, they think of sprained ankles and sports physio, but there's a lot of physiotherapy involved with respiratory conditions and neurological conditions, working with folk that have had strokes or Parkinson's disease or serious head injury. So there's a lot of different aspects to physiotherapy. So I guess I went through university and kept an open mind as to how I would enjoy those other aspects, but you know, I knew that really it was the lure of working in sport and the opportunity that physiotherapy allowed me to do that, that really led to me pursuing physiotherapy. So I, like a lot of things, I guess, did some voluntary work, which turned out to be really valuable. So I was a 4-year course. At the end of your third year, you have a chance to do an elective placement. So we do placements the whole way through the physiotherapy course in hospitals, but there's one of those that you get to try to arrange yourself. So I did it with an organisation called the Sports Institute, which at that time was based in Jordanstown, still is, and it's basically working with athletes from a lot of different sports, Northern Ireland's top athletes in these sports. So at that time there was, you know, you had like a squash player, a judo player, some of the sort of top hockey players at that time were part of the Sports Institute. So these would be folk playing international hockey, with a few cricketers in, so, and some track and field. So that was really good exposure to working in with sort of athletes. And then throughout my final year, I actually sort of continued to do voluntary stuff in the Sports Institute, 1 or 2 evenings a week. And then after that, I then actually was offered a job whenever I finished my sort of degree, a couple of days a week, doing some of the stuff that I've been doing. So that was sort of my foot in the door, I guess, into sports physio. And then from there, an opportunity came up with Ulster Rugby, and that was like, this is my 15th season now working with the senior squad at Ulster. And then I had 8 years working in athletics as well. So that was with the Irish athletics team, and yeah, went to a couple of Olympics and 3 or 4 world championships and European championships. So brilliant experiences with athletics over the years as well. So I guess my role as a soft tissue physiotherapist, it's maybe not exactly, again, what folk would imagine when they think of a physiotherapist working in a sporting setting. I guess ironically, I don't really work a lot with players who are injured, but within the rugby setting, I guess you'll find that a lot of the guys, even if they're playing in the team at the weekend, they will all have like work-ons. So these could potentially be like weaknesses or things that, if left unaddressed, could develop into an injury, which would stop them then being able to play. or it could be things that are preventing them from performing at their best level that's possible at that point in time. So I would generally have about an hour a week with all the guys that are starting in the match at the weekend, and that can be a wide range of different work, from deep sort of soft tissue massage work to moving out certain joints that are stiff, a lot of sort of PNF stretching, neuromuscular stuff, just different techniques really, but all aimed at, I guess, enhancing performance and preventing sort of niggles becoming injuries that would keep them out. I think in athletics it's a massive role. So if you imagine a 100 meter race, if an athlete is even 1% off their best, that translates maybe into, what's 1% of 10 seconds? 0.1 seconds or whatever, which at that level is the difference between winning the gold medal and coming last almost at times. So within athletics, that role of a therapist who's there really to work on those 1%ers is a really important role as well, and that would have been the role that I had with my time with Irish Athletics. So a typical week, I suppose there is such a thing as a typical week, and there isn't, but I guess for us, depending how many days we have to play, so for example, this week we played Harlequins in the Challenge Cup on Sunday night, and our next game is now this Saturday, so we would call that a 6-day turnaround. Some days you could go from Sunday to a Friday, so if it's only a 5-day turnaround like that, really you do nothing on Monday, you would do very little on Tuesday, train on Wednesday, a late run on Thursday, and then play on Friday. So that week there's maybe only one big training session, whereas if you play on the Friday and you don't have a game until the following Sunday, and there's like a 9-day turnaround, you could train Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Generally Thursday would be a down day, something late on a Friday, and then building into the game. So yeah, that's sort of my sort of typical week. Will be in early enough, maybe around 7:30. I guess there's always players that need to be checked out to declare them fit to train or not fit to train, as the case may be. So we'll do a bit of work with them in the morning. Then there'll be a team meeting usually, which we would go to as well, and that could be just previewing a game at the weekend. So this weekend, obviously, we spent a bit of time looking at Northampton and just their strengths and weaknesses, just as sort of a preview of the game. And that's helpful for us as physios to know as well, just to know, what sort of type of game it's likely to be. Is it going to be a real open, sort of fast game? And that might sometimes lead into decisions around players. And then generally it will be back and probably be into a time of stropping. Then it could be over to cover a pit session, back by the lunch, then sort of working with players one-to-one generally through the afternoon. And then we'd maybe have a sort of department meeting. That's often with the athletic performance or sort of strength and conditioning guys, just to look at players and where they are in their sort of rehab journey, and just to chat about anything else that comes up. And then in the match day, so I would travel to every away game as well and work home games. So that looks like generally meeting at the airport the day before, the evening before a game, and the hotel would be busy. And then, the match day, I guess, is generally quiet enough. Guys are happy enough just to sort of just keep themselves to themselves and sort of think about the game. And then stropping will start maybe 2.5 hours before the match for the guts of an hour, and then travel to the game and a bit more stuff, one-to-one maybe in the changing room before the match, out to the match, and then back in and assess what the damage has been and see how busy the next week's going to be. In terms of characteristics or skills that are important for a physio in a professional sport environment, I think I would start off by saying that there is room for diversity, so I look at our physio team and it is quite diverse in terms of personality. So it's not to say that there's one personality that will work in a professional sport environment. That's not the case. I guess a general interest in sport, I think, is really important, just in terms of understanding an athlete's mind. Doesn't necessarily need to be in rugby. So our head of department, Chris McNichol at the minute, wouldn't really have grown up with rugby and didn't know much about rugby, and actually spent the first few months when he came in to work for Ulster just learning the game, because I think it's really important that you understand the game, just to know, what a player needs to be able to do. So a prop, what does a prop need to be able to do in a scrum, and how is this injury maybe going to hinder or affect them on that. But it's not essential, I guess, to have a pre-knowledge of the game, but important that if you are working in that sport, that you do take time to know the sport inside out. I guess just being, in some ways, a good people person. So I think, I spend a lot of time just one-to-one with guys. As I say, I probably spend about an hour each week with guys. So I guess it is important that, you're able to have a level conversation, and I probably see more of those boys than I do my own family and good friends. So it's one of the things I love about the job, that you do get to build good relationships with lads. Other skills, probably being good at making decisions, especially if you're doing pit side stuff. There can be a bit of pressure around being able to assess something quickly, come to a diagnosis, and decide whether it's okay for this player to continue or whether they need to be removed. Sometimes it could be emergency type scenarios, which you hope you don't see too many of, but in the nature of rugby, there can be some fairly serious injuries, neck injuries, and I guess just being able to remain calm in the midst of a pressurised situation is important. And I guess you're working in a team environment, so being able to work as part of a team is really important. As I say, we spend a lot of time together, both as a physio team and as a wider coaching, athletic performance and medical performance team. And just the communication on players is really, really important. So every morning, actually, I didn't say this on a typical day, but we will meet as a full staff for 15 minutes and basically just run through players, highlight any issues, look at what the training session is going to be, and decide which parts of the session are appropriate for which players. So being able to communicate and work as part of a team is really important as well. In terms of career highlights, I'd love to say with Ulster winning something, but we actually haven't done that since I started in 2007. I think 2006 was the last time they won something, so maybe I'm a bit of a bad omen, but hopefully we might be able to change that, even in the next 10 weeks, who knows. But I guess we had a great run in 2012. We got to the European Cup final. We beat Munster in the quarter-final on Easter Sunday, which was a massive result. I guess Munster at that time were brilliant, and they had a lot of Irish internationals, and particularly at home at Thomond Park, and they had actually finished as top seeds, and we snuck in 8th position, and because of that we ended up going to Thomond. So that was a massive task, and nobody really gave us a shot, but we beat them in the quarter-final, and then got Edinburgh in the semi-final, and then Leinster hammered us in the final. So that was brilliant. We weren't expected to get to the final at that stage. It was a wee bit ahead, I guess, of where we sort of were in our journey. But that was definitely a career with Ulster. Even just a couple of the South Africa tours. So some South African teams have come into the league, and I've really enjoyed just that sense of a sort of good old-fashioned rugby tour. Going to the other side of the world and playing teams out there has been brilliant. I guess then with athletics, the two Olympic Games is a massive highlight as I look back. Just being in the Olympic Village for 3 weeks in Rio and 3 weeks in London was class. I love sport, so the Olympic Village it's weird in a way, just walking around and seeing Novak Djokovic having breakfast, or I realise I'm name dropping, but just to give you an idea of what the village is like, you know, I went down late. There's a McDonald's in the village, and it's free 24/7. And I had finished. There was one of our girls was running the 1500 meter race, and she got drug tested after, so that took ages. So I wasn't getting back to the village until 1:30 in the morning, and starving, and thought I'll just go down for a few chicken nuggets. So off I went, as you do, down to McDonald's 1:30 in the morning, and in the queue over to my left was LeBron James and Kobe Bryant, which was really cool. So there's just folk at the top of their game. The golfers were in Rio, so I'm a big golf fan, so it was class. I know all the golfers weren't there, but you know, the likes of Ricky Fowler and Bubba Watson and stuff were floating around the village, so that was cool. So yeah, definitely the Olympic Games was a big highlight. Plus just travel with athletics, travelled all over the world. South Africa, California we'd gone to for training camps each year, and then championships in Beijing, one of the world championships, Korea, Oregon, and then all through Europe. So yeah, that definitely lots of brilliant experiences, and things I'm very grateful to have done.